Hey Dreamers, I can't believe it. We are so close to Dreamers Podcast existing for 3 whole years. To celebrate this amazing accomplishment, I have decided to put together a live event here just outside of Philadelphia, May 20th. DreamCon will be an all-day event where you can meet past guests, network with other Dreamers, and play minute-to-win-it games to raise money for charity, and of course so much more. Tickets are on sale now at superjoepardo.com/DreamCon. I can't wait to see you all there. Hey Dreamers, my guest today is making his dreams come true through courage, commitment, faith, and service. Dreamers, I'd like to welcome to the show Joseph, and I said Joseph and I was supposed to say Joe Wilner.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Joe. And either one. Joseph might just be easier since both of our names are Joe. But either
I'm
way,
not going to get confused. I don't talk about myself in the third person, Joe. It's okay.
Yeah, no, well, thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Joe reached out. I'm pretty sure you reached out from my on my site, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Yeah, I learned about your podcast and listened to a few episodes, and I was very drawn to the idea of the Dreamers podcast, since it's something I'm passionate about, is following my dream and helping people dream again and think big. And yeah, I wanted to reach out and see if we could collaborate.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy that you decided to reach out and be a guest. And so you have well, let's start with your background first. So why don't you get started with that? Sure.
So I'm in the role of I'm a licensed therapist in Kansas. I also do life coaching and career coaching, helping people find a mission in life that they're passionate about, stand for something, and really do work that they feel is important and makes a difference. And as I was doing that for many, many years went to school for that and followed your traditional linear path of success, I hit a point when I turned 30. So I'm 33 now. So it's been, a couple of years journey with this, where I hit a point where I was just like, I think a lot of people have this experience where they sort of are starting to question why they're doing what they're doing, and really what their purpose is, and just kind of feeling like there was something more for me that I wasn't doing or wasn't pursuing at the time. And music, I played drums, had always been a thread throughout my life since I was 15. I was in my first, garage punk band kind of thing. And, from there conformed and, I was going into high school and, so conformed and said, all right, well, I can't do drums. I gotta be cool and try to fit in. And then was in another band later on in high school, and then ended up conforming in the sense of going to college. Well, drums isn't a real career for me, so now I'm going to go to college. Never did the band thing in high school, which in retrospect, I wish I would have. But so then went to college and did the traditional thing there, studied psychology, and ended up graduating with a degree in psychology and got another band. And so this would have been like sort of, early to mid 20s, and was playing in this band, and then went to grad school to get my license to be a psychotherapist. And so that band fizzled away. And so I kind of had this pattern in my life, I noticed, of really being drawn to music and playing music and loving that as a passion, really always being called to that, but then always stepping away from that to follow a more traditional status quo type of path, which I don't think is a bad thing. I'm glad it ended up that way. But when I hit 30, I ran into that again, and was fortunate enough to be connected with some people that I'd known through music previously, and was able to join this band that I'm currently in over these last 3 years. And this time, though, I told myself, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna commit to this and stick with this, and I'm not going to. And it's been tough over these last 3 years. I've had moments come up where these certain job career opportunities have been approached with them, and I've had to say no and be committed to this idea of really following my dream of music. And so over these last few years, we've got to go on tour with a band called Neon Trees and tour the U.S. nationally. And this year, we're finishing our debut album, our full-length album, and so hopefully that'll be released this year. But I've been on that journey and still doing the therapy and coaching as I'm pursuing drumming as well. And so at this point now, through all of that, I was inspired to create a online community called You Have a Calling, where I help other people who are wanting to dream big and think big and follow that path in their life and do something that they really feel like makes a difference, that's important to them. And it's really, if they stand for something and they're tired of following more of the status quo and realizing, okay, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, but it's not necessarily really fulfilling me, and I'm feeling called to do something different. I want to be able to connect with those people and help them realize that there is a deeper purpose there for them that they can really step into and be a greater leader from that.
No, I love the fact that you're committed to doing something that you actually want to do and not just keep stepping back away because of the fact that it's like, oh, well, it's expected that we have this safe haven every time, right? And that we utilize this as a safe haven for what we expect is safe. Of course, none of it really is safe. You don't know what can happen tomorrow, or I got this job, or I have all these clients, and things could go very awry very quick on you. But no, that's awesome. So you've been playing drums since you were a kid, right?
Yeah, since my early teens. I think I started when I was 14. I just had this moment where friends of mine were playing guitar and bass, and I was like, let's start a band. I'll learn drums, And so started to just connect with my friends and start our own band, and was into music at the time. So it's something that it's been a thread through my life that now I've really started to commit to deliberately practice every day and really grow that craft and cultivate that, and realizing that if it's something that's really important to me, I can choose to make it more than a hobby if I really am committed to doing that. And there's a lot of things like that. I feel like I have the ability now. I feel like I have more grit now and more perseverance to do that now for one reason, because I'm in a situation where I do have somewhat of a foundation of financial security. What I mean by that is, if I didn't follow that linear path to create a career for myself through therapy and coaching and being able to use that to have some kind of work foundation, I don't know if I'd have the grit to pursue music. And I like to share that with people, because I don't want people to assume that I just totally overhauled my life and went for my dream and just kind of was reckless about it. It was something that it made sense at that point to, okay, like, I think I can do both. It became a both and type of mentality, as opposed to a one or the other, all or nothing mentality. So I have that grit now to really stick with it and realize, you know what, it's a long-term game. I can play drums the rest of my life, and at some point something's going to happen, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
hopefully.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like the more work you put in, the more lucky you get, right?
Totally.
So let's talk about You Have a Calling.
Okay.
So where did that come out of?
So You Have a Calling, the actual focus of that, I started to think more deeply about what my mission was and how I wanted to help people and serve people, and what I always was passionate about. And as I was doing coaching and I was going through my own coaching, I did really started to connect with this idea that, it's about, for me, a vocation. I feel like that's such an important part, meaningful work or having a purpose. And for me, my purpose came often through what I was doing in regards to kind of helping other people or trying to put myself out there through my work. I don't have a family necessarily. I think a lot of people, their purpose does come from family or parenting, those kind of roles. And I think that's great. For me, it wasn't there yet. And so I started to connect with this idea of, if I could really help people do something, or if I could do anything, what would that be? And first it was, well, I want to pursue my own dreams and my own calling to do music, and through that be able to help others to do the same. And so I'd had a blog or website prior to that called Shake Off the Grind, and I transitioned that into you have a calling, essentially. So it wasn't like it was a fresh, brand new site. I'd been online doing things like that in the personal development sphere and kind of dabbling in different stuff with that for a while. So it just transitioned into you have a calling and became much more focused on the idea of helping people find work that matters to them and work that makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons that this show got started. I don't know if you read the bio or the history of it, but yeah, it's in my case I didn't know what it was that I really wanted to do. I mean, I knew like pie in the sky like you with the drumming was like, oh yeah, DJing. Like if that I could do enough and get discovered, then that'd be awesome, and I would totally be down. But it's not like a real thing because it's so few people get to actually make that a real thing for the stuff that they want to do, right? Like if you're into doing weddings and stuff like that, that's awesome, great. I'm happy for you, and that's wonderful. But that wasn't where I wanted to head.
Sure. So I think that's a common sentiment is the difference between fantasy or daydreaming, pie in the sky kind of thing, and the idea that I like to call people of a dream chaser is that you're starting to break down that vision that you do have of really what you want to create and starting to really take steps and look at it with the end in mind, what that would really take and what that does really look like. And for me, the important thing is to help people understand it's better to start and to try and to take steps in that direction than to just totally discount it altogether as it's not possible. Because for me, the reason I kept stepping away from music was because it wasn't a viable, possible career. And until I allowed myself to dream and actually think that could be a possibility, I was always going to go a more traditional path. And so it hasn't been easy. I mean, when it comes to doing things that I think we're called to do from a place of from art, or whether it's starting a business or starting a not-for-profit that's really meant to to serve people and make a difference. All of that stuff is very, very difficult, and so it's easy to look at it as, well, I couldn't do that. Or I don't know if I really want to put the time in, or I don't know if I actually have what it takes, or what if it doesn't work? And so we just don't do anything. And to me, that's not living. That's holding back, playing safe, and not necessarily being true to what we're capable of doing. It's the difference between trying to become successful from a worldly perspective of, what does a successful career look like, right? That's different to everybody. Usually it relates to prestige, money. A lot of times it does relate to that we want to at least like what we're doing. But to me, that's very different than reaching for our potential. There's a lot of successful people that aren't reaching towards their potential. They're successful, and that's where they're at, and that's good. And so that's great. Part of me wishes sometimes that I could be fine with that and just have a successful career in life and not be called continually to keep taking risks and challenges to push myself. But for those people that are like me in that regard, I want to connect with them and help them see that maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe there is something you're meant to do and make a huge, massive impact in the world if you're willing to keep stepping in that direction.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you have to define what success looks like to you first, right? Like, does it look like money? And if it does, that's fine. I mean, I had one person on this show be like, yeah, my dream was to be rich. And I set out to figure out how that was going to happen, and he accomplished it. And I'm like, look, hey, you're owning it, so I'm not, there's no shade being thrown from this direction because, that's what you want. That's fine. At least you defined what you wanted, right? There's so many people who don't. It's just like this vague idea of being happy enough with their life and having more money than they know what to do with, and maybe not like a million, multi-millionaire, billionaire, but just having enough money to like be more than comfortable with their lifestyle, and stuff like that. But yeah, so I'm curious, like, so you said that you were dabbling in some other blogs and stuff, but what are some of the first steps you took when you wanted to be when you were like, I'm going to start You Have a Calling?
Yeah, so I was going through my own coaching at the time, being coached with some group coaching with some other people, and was really at a place where I was trying to figure out what's next for me. And I was doing the band thing at the time. I'd already kind of committed to that. I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this music thing and really go there. And I was, I've always done different freelance work along with therapy stuff and contract work. So, I like to share that I had some liberty to take to kind of take a risk and to go in maybe a more unorthodox direction because of that, at least in my opinion. I didn't have dependents relying on me and those kind of things, but it kind of just hit me at one point of, I want to help people connect with, at that time, what I would have called their life's work. Like, why are you here? You're alive in this incarnation for a reason. What are you here to do? Or what do you want to choose to do? What do you want to make your life about that's important to you? And I was looking at it from the lens of work, career related type of things. What do you want to create? What do you want to be up to in that regard? And You Have a Calling came from that, and wanting to be able to work with people one-on-one or in a group fashion to help them gain clarity around that, to have the courage and commitment to do that, which was things that I had to grow and learn in myself. The clarity, I feel like, is sometimes it's the hardest part for people, is what is it? And just helping people talk through and sift through all this conditioning and distractions that get in the way of us really being truthful and honest with ourselves about that. So You Have a Calling came from that. It was in a way to, and also I love writing, and it was just a way to continue putting out resources and content for people to help them in that regard.
Now, I know that drumming and family don't always go together. Bands and family don't always go together. In fact, most cases they don't. But how did your family take this idea that you were like, I'm going to move on? I mean, I assume you're not married or have kids from what you were saying, but right. How did your family take, like, I'm going to just stop taking this safe route that I've laid a lot of my life out into, and do take drumming on full time as a thing that I'm going to do?
They were pretty supportive, actually, and so I'm fortunate in that regard that they weren't expecting me to do something different. From in their eyes, I imagine they looked at it as, well, at least he has something to fall back on. I with a license to practice as a psychotherapist, as long as I keep that license, it doesn't go away. I can come back and continue to do that. And so, I had some a foundation there that, like I said earlier, made it a little easier for me to take that risk. And so they understood that. They were looking at it too from a perspective of, we'll see. I mean, if I look at it 5 years from now and nothing's happened, maybe they'll think differently. They might, at some point they might be like, hey, this playing rock star thing isn't going anywhere. But it's been 3 years and things are happening. We had our song HGX, we have an EP out, was on a Pepsi commercial before the Super Bowl. And so we've had really? some publishing deals. We've gone on tour, so things have happened. So it's we keep having these wins and these blessings that are showing up that are making it still a pretty easy decision for me to make, that I'm going to stick with this. So it hasn't been for naught that I've been doing this. There's things that have occurred that allow me to keep having that faith and keep growing my faith in the mission that I have. So yeah, but I also started You Have a Calling for that reason. I think a lot of times people don't necessarily have that support, and people don't necessarily have people around them that are willing to understand or encourage them. They might frankly have the complete opposite. So I was fortunate in my family to have that. For me, it was more random strangers or people in my life when they say, hey, what do you do? That question is always a little tricky. Because it's easy to want to give them the status quo answer that they'll understand, as opposed to the bigger idea of, I help people follow their dreams and have a mission they're passionate about, and then it's a little more confusing at that time for those kind of people. But yeah, family was supportive, and so I was lucky in that regard.
Oh,
fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, no, totally. It does help a lot when you have family that's supportive, and that's amazing. I didn't realize that you had a song that played right before the Super Bowl. That was this year.
It was, yeah. So
Oh,
it was
awesome.
pretty amazing experience. We had a publishing deal that happened about a year ago, and we didn't necessarily know when they were going to use it or how they were going to use it. So couldn't have been more fortuitous of a time.
Oh, that's awesome. No, that's
Yeah,
awesome. So congratulations. I mean, not many people could say that they had anything to do with the Super Bowl
right on. Yeah, thank
other
you.
than watching it and stuffing their face full of chicken wings, apparently.
That's
So,
good too, though.
oh, yeah, well, yeah, of course, of course. Um, so, so, so what's been the biggest roadblock for you, Joe?
It's a really good question. There's been numerous and most of them have been internal obstacles and roadblocks for me. Um, a lot of them have been self-doubt and like having to stretch my belief and my identity about who I am and who I can become. And, from the beginning of being a part of this, the people that I connected with in this band who actually are the songwriters and really started this project, they had a powerful, inspiring vision of where they wanted to go, which was a part of my draw to this. I was like, man, if I'm going to go for it and do this, there's no better group to do it with because these people have they're big thinkers. But what came up with that also was that feels great, and I'm on board with that. But am I really good enough? I'm not. I wasn't, and still am. I'm getting better because for the last 3 years I've deliberately practiced on my craft. But at that point, I was relatively rusty. Wasn't that great of a drummer, pretty average. And so I was joining this vision of this project that wanted to be huge, and I was just a pretty average drummer. And so I had to battle that initially and really say, okay, what's it going to take? What do I need to do to become the drummer and the person I need to be able to step into that vision and show up when that time comes? And so I've had to work through a lot of internal obstacles of shifting my identity about who I am and what's possible for my life and what I deserve, frankly, in regards to just, shame and guilt and all those things that come up of not feeling like we're someone, like for me, not feeling like I'm worthy of maybe a level of success that I'm going for. And so those kind of things were those were truly the most difficult obstacles, and being patient and having the grit to stick with it, even when you're not always seeing results. You kind of, with music, there is an element of waiting, actually. And, you can't just hustle necessarily as much. I don't feel like, at least with what we're trying to do, there's some patience that's required. With business, it's not going out and making connections, and that's part of it, obviously. But it's a different experience for me because as being a part of this band, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily in a leadership role. I'm more of a support of this team on this team, and so sometimes it's having to have patience and faith through all of that, as opposed to, which is good because much of my life has always been about just trying to make things happen and having control and doing things and being productive, and all that's good, and I still do that. But there's a really powerful thing that happens, at least in my experience, when I let go a little bit and let go of the reins and stop trying to have to know what's going to happen and how it's going to happen, and allow myself to do the best I can that day, take it one day at a time, and do what I can that day to make things progress or make things happen, as opposed to having this, being neurotic about it, And so it was nice to let go of a lot of that and let go of that sense of control through the process. So really, yeah, the internal obstacles, those are the things that I've had to deal with. Externally, it's been up and down in regards to my finances. I haven't necessarily, I've had to learn to be more resourceful in that regard through this process and find ways to make money and freelance and do those kind of things. And the more, get more involved in the sort of gig economy kind of world that we live in and be resourceful in that way. But I like that too. I like variety. So if I just had a, 9 to 5 kind of thing every day, I feel like I would really struggle to, I just know my soul would be empty if I was doing that on a daily basis. So, and that's just for me, my personal experience and the way that I'm wired in that regard, I guess. But so yeah, so it's been fun to be able to experiment with a different way of living and really reconditioning my view of what I'm supposed to be doing and what success looks like, and starting to reevaluate all of that and really just really kind of reclaim for myself what I'm being called to do, and really following more of my intuition and my heart, and truly a little less of my logic. And I'm finding that in a strange way makes life easier, and I feel less heavy and less pressured in certain situations because of that. So yeah, internally, I guess I got a lot of baggage I had to work through. I don't know.
Well, it's tough when you're a driver and you want to drive every aspect of your life to be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to let somebody else take the wheel for a little while and hope for the best and have some faith, because, it's easy to not want to, especially when you're a driver, to not want to have faith in other people that they're going to get the job done like you would. And I think it's really interesting that you felt the fact that even though you had been a drummer for so many years, I mean, you weren't like drumming round the clock, for all those years either. But, having to have that feeling of like, oh, I'm just an average drummer. There's a lot of average people who get not so average contracts when it comes to music.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? So being and the other piece is just being one piece, like a key, was a key in a cog or cog in the system or whatever. Like you being in, if you actually were indeed average, of course, like that's just we're always our toughest critic. But if you were actually indeed average, that can be elevated by what everybody else is doing, especially because you're the drummer, right? So depending on how the music is and everything like that, like you being that piece, that backbone, don't necessarily need to be like, Travis Barker to be able to be that, like a monster of a drummer.
Yeah. And it's pop rock music. So my job is more to keep time and make sure, everything stays together as opposed to doing anything too fancy. So in that sense, maybe being average was good. I fit that mold a little better than if I was going in there trying to do fancy stuff. I don't know. So, but I do want to share that because you mentioned this idea of, I ran into that notion of, questioning whether I had what it takes. And that's something I really learned that I want to share with people is I find that a lot of people, that is a thing that inhibits them from going for something they want, is they don't think they're good enough, or they think they have to be the best to do something. They have to be perfect, and you just have to be good enough. And that's something I really realized is you just have to be good enough at the time you're starting at that level to go for it. And then you keep getting better and you work towards excellence and mastery along the way. You don't have to have mastery to start. And that's something that I really connected with, that I think is important for people to realize. To follow your dreams, you don't have to be perfect. So get that out of your heads, because I struggle with that.
Well, hey, Michael Jordan had coaches, Phil Jackson and other coaches along the way. So, I mean, he didn't always listen, but he had them, and he did listen like majority of the time, which only continued to improve him. And his process along the way. So, it doesn't have to, you don't start out being the fastest swimmer like that. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of honing of not just the skills, but the processes that you're going through on a day-to-day basis to make sure that you're in the shape and the mindset and all of that along the way. So,
well, and no story of immense success comes without resiliency and adversity and failure along the way. And it's so easy to forget that too, that, we look at Michael Jordan and we're like, well, he's the best, and he was just destined to be the best. But, he had his own adversity along the way. Yeah. That's a classic story of him getting cut from his high school team. So all stories have their adversity along the way. And that's something too that I think is valuable, is expect it, be ready for the adversity and step into it, as opposed to, wallowing in it and having a pity party when you face it. And that's something that I, over the last really year, have really come to terms with, is now I'm looking for it. I'm ready for it. I'm like, all right, when the adversity comes, let's do it. That's just part of the game. That's part of life. That's, there's no chance that I'm going to get to where I want to get to if I'm afraid of running into those failures and mistakes. If I'm avoiding those, I'm just delaying the inevitable at some point.
Absolutely. I mean, as entrepreneurs and business owners, we are, as I say, professional problem solvers, and it's those things like it's not a problem, it's an opportunity for a solution or something to that effect. It's always another opportunity, but you have to really believe that, right? Like, you could say it, but
right.
I really believe it. Like, I get frustrated, sure, but I don't let it fester in me. I just look for what's the positive. Like, hey, it could be so much worse, and let's figure out how to move on from that victim mentality of a bad situation came knocking at my door.
Well, and it's a mindset shift, and that's something, it's easy to have a vision and think big about what you want, but then part of getting there again is there's the strategy and the planning and all of the goal setting and execution, and then the mindset to do all that is equally as important. Of who do I need to become to actually do that? What kind of place do I need to be showing up from every day, and how do I need to be thinking? Success thinking is a real thing. There's successful people are successful because of how they think and their worldview and their perspective on all of these things you're mentioning. When problems emerge in their life, they're able to look at it as a challenge to rise to, as opposed to something that that all of a sudden therefore I can't do it now because I had challenges. So mindset, it's a shift that people can make, though. If we're intentional about working on that aspect of our life.
Yeah, you definitely have to be intentional. Like, I didn't get this way by accident. Right. It really is every day, just constantly looking at the bright side of things, looking at how much, thinking about how much worse could this possibly be. And I know, and knowing yourself really is been a key for me, is knowing what level of issues in a row, how many punches in a row can I take before I start to crack. And I think it's about 4. When I get to about 4 things that go wrong, that's when I start to come undone a little bit. And because it's too many things need to be solved in a little bit of time, and I'm only one person, and I can't think, and I noticed as I've gotten older, because I just turned 30 last year. And I'm wondering if you're the same way. I've noticed that as I've gotten older, and I know somebody else that I was talking to, it's harder to shift gears in my mind than it was, 5-6 years ago. Jumping from task to task to task, it takes a lot more out of me now than I think it did. But with that said, I feel now that I can take more punches in a row, more things going wrong simultaneously. Because I've worked really, really hard to shift, not just being positive, but shift the, I don't even know how to explain it off the top of my head, but so I can't shift gears from okay, we're working on this thing, and now I got to shift to this thing to this thing, and now this thing, and they're totally different things that we're talking about. It's not even just I'm doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Multitasking,
right. Well, switch tasking. Multitasking is a myth. But doing something to that effect, I've gotten, it takes a lot more out of me than it did just 5-6 years ago, and I'm only 30 now. So to me, it's pretty worrisome. But now I can take more issues at once and put them in line easier, because I have a clearer head of the priorities of what needs to be. Easier to prioritize things than it was 5 years ago.
That makes me, from my side of that, it makes me really connect with this idea that part of why I'm doing what I'm doing and committing to follow through with things that I really believe in is because when I assess my energy level and my flow and my engagement in things, that's so much more important to me than it used to be. When I was younger, I used to be able to just go for it and work hard and, just even if it was the most boring, monotonous or task, I just hated it. I could care less, but I just would crush it, right? Because I could just get into it and focus. But now, as I'm getting older, I don't have time for that. Like I'm not willing to go there, And so it's like I really assess like what's my energy level when I do this or after I do this? How engaged am I? What's my level of flow when I'm doing this activity? And I want those to be on the higher side of that pendulum, So that's just something for me that I've started to check in with more that helps me prioritize, and it's just important enough to me to fill my life with those type of activities and those type of things in my life that it's because I guess it's a standard that I've set as I've gone forward, and it just makes it easier. It makes it easier to have grit because I'm passionate about those things too.
Yep. And
so it's easier to withstand and persevere because it's something that I really care about.
For me, I used to, when I was just not that much younger, I used to like one of my reset switches was like, well, I could, take a nap or go to sleep. Right. And when I'd wake up, I'd be so much better. Like everything, I could fresh set of eyes. Right. Or I would watch something funny like a South Park or a Tosh or something to that effect, and I could hit that reset switch and bounce back into like reality of like, okay, there's always problems going on and I need to figure all that out, but like I can hit that reset switch. And now like what I did a couple weeks ago for like the first time maybe ever in my life, I actually sat and ate my lunch without watching any videos, without like reading anything, right? Doing literally just sitting there by myself, eating my lunch, and which is unheard of for me because I always have like I'm watching something, I'm listening to something is going on, and it really cleared my mind like a lot. Like the same time, like at night, right? Like I can't. I mean, I've been battling with sleep for years now. But because it's like one of those things where it's like, man, you do it every day of your life, yet I still suck at it, really bad. But it's like right when I'm about to go sleep, that's like the mind opened up, and like all of a sudden, like all the Tetris pieces fall into place, and you're like, I need to write some of this stuff down, and then before you know it, it leads to other aspects. Like, well, if I can solve that, I can solve this. But no, just
you got to trust that the creative juices are flowing at that time, I guess.
Yeah, right, exactly. I do, but at the same time, like I still need to get sleep. Like I have a baby now, and like sleep is at a premium. It's not a premium, it's not a luxury I have like I once had. But my point being is just doing that was like, I don't know, like not like necessarily like a meditation per se, but just getting to just like sit there in silence, like eating, but no stimulation. Yeah. It's so weird for me.
Well, I like that a lot because we're surrounded by stimulation and distractions. If there's one thing that helps people I've found and myself have clarity, it's moments of stillness and silence and solitude and actually being able to unplug for a minute and just have the ability to quiet some of our inner chatter. And so I think that's crucial in this day and age, not just for mental and emotional health, but for some insight and contemplation and reflection that a lot of us don't have time for. We don't have time to reflect on many things, so we're just going through the motions, and we're never thinking twice about why we're doing what we're doing or what we're doing it for, just how we're doing it. We're just doing less being, and we don't have a chance to think about how we're being. I think that's when a lot of people run into that dissonance because they're just busy and they're doing things, but then they're like, why am I not fulfilled, or why do I feel empty? I'm doing all sorts of stuff. I have a ton of stuff in my life, but I feel empty. I think it's worth reflecting on.
Yeah, the thing for me was, just go like leaving my family's business got me to be really, really intentional with like everything that I wanted to do, and even like being turning down like business opportunities and stuff like that, and like hearing my dad like, oh well, you could do the IT stuff for all these different companies, you get these contracts, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to be woken up at 3 a.m. because somebody's stuff stopped working. That's not my fault it stopped working, but now I gotta wake up and figure out what the heck is going on and what it could possibly be, and go through the troubleshooting, and maybe I didn't go to bed till midnight. Now I'm working on 3 hours of sleep trying to figure out these problems. Like, yeah, that's going to take years off my life. That's and
it's not the lifestyle you want.
What? For a little bit of money that I'm going to get for it, money doesn't really mean much to me. So it's like I don't care about that. So it's more about like how am I going to spend my time and doing the things that I actually want to do, and what's going to help me project into the situation and the life I want to live. And it meant like, hey, yeah, I'm really good at IT stuff, but I don't want to do it anymore. I'm tired of like computers breaking and I gotta, we're losing money because it's not working type thing. Nah, sorry. Like, let that be somebody else. Like, that's not me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. That the definition of success, slowly figuring that out. I find less and less that people are clear on that. They have a definition. It's whether or not it's actually their definition of success. And I even find for myself, I still have to really check in and say, is that my own? When I have a belief about something, or when I'm triggered about something about like, oh, I'm not being successful enough, or whatever limiting belief comes up, I have to check in and say, really, like, is that true? Is that just the voice of society in my ear, or do I really think that? Is that truth to me? And I have to check in with that more often now to help me stay aligned with what I want to do, what's important to me.
So, Joe, what was your childhood dream growing up before being a drummer?
Oh, I like that question. I remember when I was really young in childhood, 5 or 6 or something. I think I remember I wanted to be a cartoonist. I really liked animation and cartoons and stuff. So I was like, oh, cool, I want to draw cartoons. I would draw a lot and really liked animals. So there was a point where I wanted to work with animals in some form or fashion. I think even at one point my parents made fun of me because I said I wanted to be a mascot for a team because I thought mascots were cool, like the animals.
They are. So, Philly Fanatic is like the best mascot ever, man. Like, and then that's somebody's job. Like, literally, that's like
Casey
one person.
Casey Wolf's pretty legit. We were talking about the Chiefs earlier, so yeah. But yeah, I mean, so there was, there was some pieces there when I was younger that and I still, who knows? I probably could have gone in those directions and had fulfillment. But our path takes us in a certain direction, and we make choices along the way, and have to check in with ourselves as we do that. And for some reason, I've landed in a place now that I don't think I have ever. When I went to college and when I went to grad school to be a therapist, at that time, that was it. And I was like, yes, this is my calling. I really want to serve people in this way. And in that regard, I think our paths diverge through life and our callings change. And what we're meant to do is an evolving, puzzle, I guess you could say, that we have to keep piecing together. So right now, my path is diverging again and focused on music. And who knows in 10 years, 5-10 years, what it'll be. But I think as long as I'm true to that, and as long as I'm willing to honor what's coming up and wanting to emerge for me, I really do believe that I'll be where I'm meant to be in that regard. So I'm getting to a place where I'm definitely trying to become more from a place of peace of mind as I do all this stuff. And I don't know if that's right. I don't know if that's helpful for everyone, but it's definitely helpful for me. The more I let go, the more things unfold in a strangely serendipitous way. So I don't know how I could go deeper into that, but that's more of a one-on-one thing I can talk about with people, I guess.
So I'm going to disagree with you a little bit there, and
okay.
Because what I heard was creativity and performing, and you're doing both of those right now.
Okay.
Right? Creativity with drawing and performing as a Kansas City Chief.
The mascot. Yeah.
I didn't even know that was the mascot for Kansas. I don't know how they get Wolf out of the Chiefs, but
yeah, I mean there's a lot of socio-political issues with that whole thing anyway, so maybe we should move on. But.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, but I mean, usually the Washington team usually comes up before the Chiefs.
True. That's a good point. I think all of those things, the creativity is a big part of it, and the compassion is a big part of it. I was compassionate with animals. I really, I thought I wanted to help animals. Yep. I thought, there was a caring compassion there, and I think I'm doing that through coaching and counseling, and I do public speaking and talk to youth a lot about leadership, and I want to help people. And then there's the creative side that I get to do through music and through writing, through creating my brand. All of that was a creative endeavor, and so I see in the bigger umbrella of all of that there are those qualities that overlap.
Yeah, we never know how it's going to, like, I wanted to be a child psychologist at the age of 6. So,
okay.
Yeah, and then DJing came around when I was like 10, and I got to do the DJing part, and that led into performing and helping other kids. I mean, I work at a nonprofit now helping youth in Camden, New Jersey. So, get through their internships in a web department. So, like, everything always comes together, and plus I do speaking to youth and all that. So, like, everything has come back. I just didn't know, 24 years ago that it was going to be like this.
Yeah.
We don't have that foresight, but a lot of times, like, people do, like, whatever, especially the people that are on this show wind up doing whatever the roots were of the reasons that they wanted to be those things when they were growing up, end up, like, being what they are now, like, in the roots of what they do now. It just might not be what they thought it was.
Yeah.
Do you still draw?
I don't know. But I find that that's just, it's something that maybe I put more time and effort into cultivating that skill. I might like it more, but it's not something that comes up for me much. The music is really something I can really let go and put my creativity into, and writing, things like that. So
totally understandable. What do your dreams for the future look like?
So, yeah, I like that question too. For me, I want to see where this band goes and see what's possible with this. And I'm on board as long as I need to be to for me, I want to go on tour again. I want to experience the world, and being able to do that through music, because I feel like music does provide so much joy to people, just an amazing way to connect with people. And so continuing to do music and performing music is going to be a big part of it. And from there, branching out and connecting with people in a bigger platform through speaking in the future, to talk to them about what they're being called to do and how they can make a difference being themselves, and really learning to honor that so much more and let go of the fear that just because something isn't important, because what's really important to me, it's kind of hard when other people don't get it, when it's not important to them, and starting to work through that and see how they can serve. I think we live in a time right now more than ever that using our gifts and our talents to make a difference is more important than it's ever been. And I really, really want to be able to connect with people and encourage them to do that, and see how they can go out and make a difference, and not just make their life necessarily about them. So when I say following my dream, there's a part of me 3 years ago that was very focused on, like fulfillment and happiness and doing what you want with your life is great. And that has transitioned significantly into a much more collective view of that, and that through our dreams is a way that we're meant to serve and be, to make a difference. And but through following our dreams, we're going to have that opportunity to do that, because we're going to step into more an authentic role of who we're really meant to be. And so, through speaking and writing and music, those three veins of creating, I want to be able to connect with people and serve people through that. And so where that can take me is a lot of different directions, but for now and the coaching's in there too, and working with people one-on-one still to do that. But all of those pieces coming together hopefully can, I can make an impact.
No, that sounds awesome. And hopefully continued success with the band and everything that goes along with it. Though are you prepared like to go and do like the long tour hauls and all that?
That's what I want. I mean, I fulfilled the lifelong dream of going on tour. We did a first leg of as a support act for the Neon Trees, and so we did that about a year and a half ago. I want another tour. Yeah, that's kind of what that is my focus. Like that's kind of my next milestone in the hero's journey. And once I do that, then I can kind of sit back and reflect on my why again. But I really do want that. I want to be able to truly experience that, and on a more prolonged level and more in-depth level. And yeah, so totally.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I mean, you have the life set up for it, right? You're not married, no kids.
Yeah.
So it's
damn millennials, just no commitment, right?
Yeah. No, hey, I hear. Well, hey, I thought most people my age and our age would be married, well before most of my friends got married and had kids, which wasn't until almost 30. So, yeah. I don't know about no commitment, but it's just, but
Yeah.
But then again, like people our age are like right on that cusp of millennial, like, between millennial and I guess Gen X. So
yeah.
it's we're more cuspers than one or the other. Honestly, I think we got the best of both worlds because we got to grow up in the technology, but we're not so consumed by it that that we're like millennials.
And I definitely got the piece of, as I grew up, of thinking big and I could do anything and those kind of messages. But yeah, the grit was lacking, and so I had to develop that along the way. But if you can bridge those two of thinking big and wanting to make a difference and changing the world, but accepting and fully appreciating the hard work it takes, I think people can set themselves up for amazing things.
I would agree. So, how can people connect with you, Joe, and the band as well?
Yeah, so with You Have a Calling, it's youhaveacalling.com. You can just go there. You can go to You Have a Calling, and there's a Start Here section that you can go to and learn more about some resources you can sign up for to help you with, there's resources that can help you focus on more gaining the clarity, kind of a workbook you can go through, a couple coaching videos that is just a good starting place to start reflecting on things and going through some exercises to think about, more of a clear direction you want to start researching and looking into. And then there's some resources to help you build that grit and that perseverance. And just there's a free resource with some interviews with different individuals that just kind of goes to the idea of building resilience and what it took them when they've, faced adversity, how they got through that. So a couple resources there for people to check out. And then the band's called Yes You Are. And so you can go to yesyouare.com, but probably the best place to connect with us is through Facebook. And so it's facebook.com/ it's either O Yes You Are or Yes You Are. I know on Instagram it's O Yes You Are.
Like I think Yes You Are. O.
Yeah, and then
Yes You Are.
Just the letter O and then Yes You Are. And I think maybe the other one was taken. So, but yeah, but definitely find us on Facebook. And connect with us there, because that's that definitely really, really helps from a band's perspective, is the social media and connecting with us there and growing those platforms. So we definitely would love people to reach out and spread our music to as many people as possible.
Well, I'll definitely be liking and following along, and hopefully
Thanks.
Other people will as well. And you can find all those links at truthpodcast.com. Just had a moment there. So, Joe, is there any last thoughts you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Well, just thank you for having me, and I just really do want to encourage people to give themselves an opportunity to elevate what's possible in their life. And I'll end on a quote by Carl Jung that I really, really like, and that quote is, hopefully I don't butcher it, but I am not what has happened to me. I'm who I choose to become. And I really want people to maybe resonate with that quote as an ending point, to really think about who do you want to become, and just go from there and realize that you have the choice to step into that and grow into that leader and make a difference in this world. And I hope that people will take that seriously.
I hope that they do, and they should, because it's really, it's possible. You just have to be very intentional about what it is that you want. and how you're going to get there. You'll figure it out. We don't always know how we're going to get there. Just like our childhood dreams, we don't know that we're going to not go to school for 10 years and be a child psychologist until we find out that, oh, it takes 10 years to do that. Yeah, I'm not that big into school, so no, thanks, and I'm not going to do that. But then down the road, we end up helping the kids and completing what we wanted to do when we were growing up anyway. So Joe, I wish you the best of luck with all that, and I'd love to have you on the show again in the future to follow up and see how everything's been going. Hopefully you'll be on tour and you'll be calling me from a bus somewhere, or a hotel somewhere that's trashed in the background. I'm expecting. I would expect that hotel to be trashed, and and everything will be going great. So thank you so much for taking the time, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Joe, thank you for having me. I really, really do appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Anytime, sir. And if you're enjoying the Dreamers podcast, please go ahead and you don't need to write a review or anything like that. Though it would help if you did on iTunes. Reviews help. Subscribe, hit the subscribe button, whatever. But tell a friend, right? That's really the best thing that you could do is just go tell someone else to start downloading the show and listening. So if you enjoy it, you can go to dreamerspodcast.com. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Dreamers Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Dreamers Podcast. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Dreamers Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the Dreamers Podcast, please send an email to j@jpar.co. This podcast is copyright 2014 by jpar.co.